Hey guys, this is my first keyboard review, and it is of the YC66 by KP Republic. This is an interesting keyboard because it is one of the cheapest south-facing keyboards, south-facing hot swappable socket keyboards on the market. And I think there are some interesting things to cover about this keyboard, some unique features that I've never seen before. Not all of them are good, but you know, I think it's worth a video. So when you get the keyboard, comes in this nondescript box. You get a couple things besides the keyboard itself. Starting with the keyboard, comes in this packaging. Unfortunately, this packaging cannot be used as a, as like with a PE foam mod. Unfortunately, just kind of not the right material for that. But you get the keyboard itself. Get a closer look at the acrylic stacked plates, making the case. You get the PCB along with some plate mount stabilizers that are not good, but I will talk about them later. Get a USB-C cable that is a nicer quality than I was initially expecting. Then a switch keycap puller, both of which are not amazing, but I thought I was just getting the keyboard itself, so the additions are nice. As with the RGB of the keyboard, it's all controlled using different keys. The FN function and then the right control controls the keycaps themselves. See a couple of different modes. The left control controls the bass. And then you have different color combos by pressing FN space, then all the different keys themselves. So there's a surprisingly large variety of different modes, though I personally prefer using software just to visually see what I'm doing. The keyboard comes with more than I expected. It should be noted that my PCB has a defect and this row cannot display the color red. So as you can see, the rest of the keyboard is an off yellow, but this row is a blue. But considering if you're buying this keyboard for the south facing hot swappable sockets, you're most likely using cherry profile keycaps, and most of those are not shine through, so you can just turn off that entirely, and then it's unnoticeable, but kind of shows the quality of this keyboard in general. So when it comes to material quality and just the assembly of the keyboard itself, because of this stacked design, the PCB itself isn't supported by anything. It isn't tray mounted. It's not gasket mounted or anything. It actually just slides around in the case. The keyboard comes with two switches pre-installed in the corners to prevent it from moving. It was like I got like a Gateron red and a Gateron brown, but without any modification, I have some extra material in here. But without any modification, the PCB literally shakes around in here. I've never seen that before. And because the plate material is just this acrylic, and it's just kind of a weird design, the switches are very easy to come in and out. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, but there's a reason why acrylic isn't used that often as a plate material, just because it's, almost anything is better, whether it's PC, palm, FR4, aluminum, steel, brass, anything is better. So, that's kind of how that goes. And then when it comes to these stabilizers, they were very bad, and I tried everything to get these things to sound halfway decent. All the lube in the world, dielectric grease, snipping the ends of them, doing everything I can. I wholly modded them, but at the end of the day, they just don't sound that good. So I mean, if you do care enough to spend the extra money getting, some Duroc plate mounted stabs would be good, but that's kind of goes against the whole theory of this board and this build, which is as budget as possible. So when I bought this, it was $40 on Amazon, but now it's $60, and the only two places to buy it are either technically three. It's all sold by it was a KP Republic, but they sell on Amazon, AliExpress, and their own website, and it's all $60 there. I happen to get lucky, find it on sale on Amazon for $40. This keyboard for $40, pretty interesting. For $60, I wouldn't recommend it, but you know, with the downsides listed. There are upsides though. So with how thin the actual case is itself and the lack of sheer area underneath the PCB, there's little area for sound to resonate, and it kind of creates, and with the acrylic sandwiched together, the board sounds relatively muted, but it sounds good. It doesn't sound like the actual switches themselves do not sound that bad. And when it comes to modifications, which I will show during kind of the breakdown of disassembling this board and the process to build it, you have the space to put in a layer of PE foam behind the PCB, do a tape mod, and then do another layer kind of on top of the PCB, like PE foam wise. And that's about all you'd have. But with those modifications, the board has pretty good resonance, and because it's not mounted to anything, it's just sitting on foam. It's sitting on PE foam and tape, so it sounds shockingly good. The switches themselves, the stabilizers are another story, but the sound profile is interesting, and it's not bad. Now the board can flex, you can hear it, and when typing, you have a little bit of flex, and it's kind of a harder typing experience because, you know, besides the foam that the PCB is resting on, there isn't a whole lot that's allowing it for a lot of give. So, you know, what can you really expect for a board in this price category? You know, you kind of want to compare this to, hey, am I going to get a lot more value, a lot better of a board for this price point, for just $40 with a north-facing PCB? You know, if I can get a north-facing PCB, you know, because not every single switch is interference with cherry profile keycaps north-facing. If I were just to get a switch that is just north-facing, a switch that works with, you know, north-facing cherry profile keycaps, is it worth just doing that? That's kind of the question that, you know, I'd like to try to answer here. So I will go through a build breakdown now to show you guys process of assembling this board with the modifications I talked about. So here is the keyboard fully disassembled. Go in order. This is the top piece of acrylic, has the outside ring along with the little indentation for your delete and insert buttons. Then you got, I think, yeah, the plate goes on after this. So this is the plate. It's full acrylic as well. This is where the stabilizers mount. Then you got this single piece that has a cutout for USB-C. This is the PCB. It's kind of a downside technically that there isn't a daughter board, but for this price point, does it really matter now? I have one piece of PE foam here. Back is just a single layer of tape, you know, simple modifications. I purposely did not cover the edge, considering that there are individual RGB LEDs there. This is the lower piece of PE foam for the modifications, and then the lower piece of acrylic. So, you know, the case itself is pretty simple. For building it, you know, with these mods, you know, just bottom piece of acrylic, PCB with, you know, tape mod. Simply put it in there, you're not mounting it to anything. There's a little indentation on this piece of acrylic to show where the USB-C goes. Piece of acrylic with the cutout. Plate. and then kind of not plate, but top piece. So it's mounted with screws along the entire edge. They are somewhat of a pain to align and get in, and you do have to be careful. If you screw it in too hard, you can crack the acrylic, though it's pretty difficult to screw it in too hard because they're very tiny Phillips heads. So I will go ahead and put all of these screws in, and then add switches and keycaps. So the keyboard is fully built. I'll be installing the keycaps and switches, but I wanted to talk about the choices with that. Considering the inexpensive nature of this build, I wanted some inexpensive tactiles and some inexpensive cherry profile switches, or keycaps. So for tactiles, I ended up going with the Acco CS Lavender switches. They have a 55 gram spring, and with the tactile bump near the top, which for inexpensive tactiles is kind of rare, you know. MX Browns, Gateron Browns don't have that. So these were a unique choice that I ended up liking quite a lot. You'll hear it in the sound test, but for such an inexpensive tactile switch, these are $10 for 45. So, you know, what is that? What is the math there? Like 22 cents a switch, something around there. I might be a couple cents off, but for such an inexpensive switch, perform well. And for the keycaps, I just simply found the cheapest cherry profile keycaps I could find on Amazon. These were some PBT die sub, just normal white keycaps with black legends, and they have this Japanese subtext, which, you know, looks cool to some, but the goal here was just for the cherry profile itself. So wrapping this review up, some other builds that I would recommend. Obviously, I would inherently recommend inexpensive cherry profile keycaps with this build. If you're going to go with, that's kind of the whole reason why to buy this specific board, is the use of cherry keycaps guaranteed, as well as some inexpensive linears. So Gateron, for instance, does not work north-facing cherry profile. You know, some inexpensive Gateron linears would be awesome in this board. Some Milky housing yellows, something like that, some J-Wicks. Those would be some great options with this board. But I would focus on inexpensive switches, inexpensive cherry profile keycaps. If you're not specifically going for those things, there are better boards out there. And talking about better boards, at the $40 price point, I think that this board holds its own. I think it has its place in the market, competing against other $40 boards. You know, the cheapest they get is like the CIY Tester 68, 25 to 30 now. It used to be less expensive, but you know, you're getting some premium features with this compared to something like that. But at the $60 price point, there are, I think, too many better options out there. As well as, you know, you can start to mess around with different sizes. EpoMaker, they got a couple awesome boards around the $60 price point. So, you know, the board's not perfect, but I think if you can get it on sale at the $40 price point, I think it holds, you know, a unique place in the market for being such an inexpensive south-facing board, as well as having kind of a unique build structure, with it being the acrylic and it having very little space, no mounting. You know, it has pros and cons, but it's a unique board for that price. Overall, you know, for the $40 price that I bought it for, I'm happy with it. It's what I wanted out of it, but I also wasn't expecting too much. Thank you for watching.